telling all of you, and we've told the American people, border, border, border. We have to effect real policy change at the border, and that is a necessary condition to anything we do going forward. We have to take care of our border first. That's what the American people demand.
Every state in America is now a border state.
Border, border, border. How can we be engaged in securing the border of foreign countries if we can't secure our own? We know the urgency in Ukraine. We're going to stand for freedom and make sure that Vladimir Putin doesn't march through Europe. It's past time to secure the border.
Listen, this is a catastrophe down here.
The battle is for the border.
President Biden wants a supplemental spending bill. It better begin by defending America's national security.
Okay, these are dangerous people who are coming into the country. Over 300 known terrorists.
How can we be engaged in securing the border of foreign countries if we can't secure our own? We're in dangerous times, as has been articulated here, around the world, and here at home. We need steady leadership. We need steady hands at the wheel. Look, I regard myself as a wartime speaker. I mean, in a literal sense, we are. I knew that when I took the gavel. I didn't anticipate that this would be an easy path. Former Speaker Newt Gingrich posted a couple days ago on his social media that this is the hardest challenge that's faced a speaker probably in the history of the country, in the moment that we're in right now. He said arguably maybe comparable to the Civil War, but maybe worse. I am not resigning, and it is, in my view, an absurd notion that someone would bring a vacate motion when we are simply here trying to do our jobs.
Comparable to the Civil War. How many Americans died in the Civil War, ladies and gentlemen? 750,000? Looks like it's what the internet's telling me. Mike Johnson compares himself to the times we're in right now, where we're losing wars that we opted to get into. And he calls himself a war president. Mike Johnson, and look, folks, I don't know what a war is. You don't know what a war is. Mike Johnson doesn't know what a war is. A war is when all of the military-aged men got to go serve. That's what's happening in Ukraine right now. They just passed a bill to require everybody to join the military. And also, by the way, for life. There's not even after 3 years of service you get out. That's a war economy. Everything else in the country stops. We are not in a state of war. We haven't declared any wars, have we? But that's Mike Johnson's excuse for breaking every promise he's made. I feel like a broken record a little bit, guys. By the way, welcome to the Rescue Michigan live stream. Just a solo stream tonight. We will have some guests on our show on Sunday. We are going to talk about the special elections, of course, and unfortunately, Patty couldn't be on tonight, but she was someone who worked her tail off to help get Josh Powell elected. Obviously didn't make it, but then again, it was a very Democrat leading district to begin with. So, not too surprising of results. A lot of people are upset that Republicans didn't turn out more. We'll talk about that in a second, but we'll talk about it, I'm sure, more on Sunday. But anyway, I'm feeling like a broken record because didn't we talk a lot about House Speaker Mike Johnson this past Sunday? Yes, we did. Talking about how he got that disgusting warrantless mass surveillance FISA vote through the House. But he's not done. No, he's not done. No, now he's got his new plans for funding Ukraine and Israel and our Indo-Pacific allies. What does that mean, Indo-Pacific allies? It means Taiwan and anyone else we want to maybe recruit for war with China. Anyone else our State Department might want to intervene in, like, I don't know, Myanmar. Thailand. Yeah. That's where Mike Johnson's priorities are. So much for that America First crap. Yeah, let's just make war with China. That'll go well. When you're losing a war with Russia, start some brand new wars, right? Go to war with China and Iran. Why not? We've, not done so well in Russia, but, folks, all you got to do is print money out of thin air, and then you can use the money you printed out of thin air to buy weapons that come out of thin air, and then you can conquer the world. It's that simple, right? No. You mean we can't just give Ukraine $60 billion plus whatever we steal from, the Russian assets that we froze? It's another thing Mike Johnson proposed, by the way, in case you didn't know. Yeah, he's proposed four bills that he's going to push this coming week, but no, they're having votes apparently this Saturday. That's right. Congress is meeting this Saturday. So there's been a whole lot of stories in the news. The most recent thing is that Johnson is now counting on Democrats to get bills through the Rules Committee. Like we talked about this on Sunday. The Rules Committee is like the committee that passes the resolutions that give the House the authority to take up bills. It's a weird thing they do. The state legislature has no equivalent to it. I guess the majority floor leader would be the equivalent of the Rules Committee. But the House has this committee that, as part of the negotiations to get McCarthy to be the speaker, no, not McCarthy. Johnson. I'm almost certain that's correct. It was when Johnson was the speaker that they made an agreement to kick off some rhinos and put some conservatives on the Rules Committee. Thomas Massey, Ralph Norman, and Chip Roy. I think that happened after McCarthy got kicked out. And now Mike Johnson's talking about saying, screw the Rules Committee, or at least we'll just only bring things up the Democrats want anymore. So we had a $1.2 trillion budget bill, which is not the budget, by the way, not omnibus, a big chunk of the budget. There's more coming, guys. There's plenty more coming. But they have some parts of the budget that were going to expire. And Mike Johnson cut a deal with the Democrats to get that budget through. More Democrats vote than Republicans voted for the budget. Most Republicans didn't vote for that budget, which is weird because wasn't the whole point of this whole exercise that, we're going to get Kevin McCarthy and he's going to agree to all these concessions with the conservatives, so he'll be a conservative speaker. Then he broke all his promises. Then they got Mike Johnson and he was going to be a breath of fresh air, and he was going to work with the whole caucus and work with the conservatives. And strangely, Mike Johnson is not even abiding by the Hastert rule. Those who don't know, there was a Republican speaker, Dennis Hastert, and he had a rule. His rule was, I don't bring anything to the floor that doesn't have the support of a majority of Republicans. Great rule. Great rule. Doesn't work well if your whole caucus is rhinos, but when there's not, then it works out suddenly very well. Unfortunately, I guess we'll never know what that would be like, because Johnson is now, screw the border. Screw the border. All that border security stuff he talked about, all that. We're not going to do anything for Ukraine or Israel, any foreign countries, till we secure our own border. Nope. Democrats said no. And Johnson, just like every other Republican. Oh, I guess we can't do it then. The Democrats vetoed us. Amazing things. By the way, speaking of things the Democrats do, Democrats, and speaking of the border too, Democrats just dismissed the articles of impeachment against Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security. Dismissal. Hey, who ever thought that was an option? The opposing party goes to impeach, an executive branch officer, like, I don't know, the president, and the opposing party. It's amazing when the opposing party controls the Senate, they can just dismiss the charges. Who would have ever thought that? Yet somehow it didn't occur to any of the Republicans in the U.S. Senate when Donald J. Trump was the president. No, they had to have 2 long trials. Some of them even voted to remove President Trump in those 2 sham impeachments. But Mitch McConnell could have shut them down. He chose not to. Tells you everything you need to know about who Mitch McConnell is, first of all, and about the Republicans in general, but Mitch McConnell especially. Anyway, here is some of the new backlash to this this incredible dereliction by Speaker Mike Johnson. Folks, again, I might sound like a broken record, but this just gets crazier and crazier, worse and worse. Here we go. Here is, by the way, welcome everybody. Folks, we do have chat. If you guys are interested in chatting, you're welcome to chat. It's a quiet night, apparently. Might be a short stream then. But anyway, here we have, this is a clip from Rand Paul on Judge Napolitano's show very recently. Here we go.
But we now have Speaker Johnson disappointing me to my very core. I mean, he started out at least saying that foreign aid should be paid for, and that would be a big step forward. And he's backing away from that. Now he's talking about passing all of the foreign aid unpaid for. And it really doesn't seem to be much difference between his position and Joe Biden's or his positions and Mitch McConnell's.
So there you go. That was Rand Paul on Judge Napolitano's show. And yeah, he goes on to say, this is no better than having a Democrat speaker. And it's not. It's really not. And, you know, I want to talk about this a little more because I know what's coming next. I know what's coming next. Next is when I start getting the emails from people saying, looks like you're a friend of Christina Karamo's now because you're not helping the Republicans, Adam. Let's get this straight, guys. It's two completely different worlds between, on one hand, elected officials betraying the principles that we elected them to uphold versus going after party officials whose only job is to get people across the finish line. Completely different things. If you don't hold Republicans accountable for voting for this garbage and supporting this garbage and condoning this crap, guess what? They're never going to care about any of your other issues. So why would they? You're their property. Your vote is their property. That's the way they look at it. So yeah, I mean, this is now Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, and this is here. I'll show you. This is the funniest article I've seen in a little while. This is from Politico, and here's the headline: Space lasers, abortion, and Putin's envoys. Lawmakers troll using foreign aid bills. And so Marjorie Taylor Greene says she offered multiple amendments, including one to the Israeli aid bill that would fund space laser technology on the southern border. You know, I mean, it's trolling, but it's appropriate trolling because she's pointing out Johnson's reneging. For those who don't recall, the Jewish GOP firebrand has been widely mocked for backing a conspiracy theory that Jewish space lasers were used to start California wildfires. It was a joke, but the media doesn't take jokes, or even if they know they're jokes, they just use them to you know, go after people they want to target. He also proposed funding an Iron Dome, the defense system used by Israel, on the southern border of the U.S. I mean, which obviously is very funny because, you know, conjures up images of a missile defense system targeting illegals crossing the border, which is a funny picture. And additionally, Green floated a measure that would require any House lawmaker voting for the Ukraine funding to conscript in the Ukrainian military. Hey, why not? I mean, it's funny, but it's a serious point. Why shouldn't they? It's the Ukrainians who are dying by the hundreds of thousands for their war against Russia. And again, I know some people are saying, hey, it wasn't us that started the war. Russia started the war. Yeah, when we broke their red line, when we put our soldiers and our money and our weapons into Ukraine and said, you guys are going to join NATO. And what did Ukraine do since 2014? When we overthrew their government and put in our guy, right? Victoria Nuland, handpicked the people to be in charge of the Ukrainian government. And what they start doing? Shelling ethnic Russian parts of Ukraine. Donetsk City, they were shelling ethnic Russian Ukrainians in Donetsk City for 10 years. And you want to say Russia started the war? So we have fought Russia with Ukrainian blood, and they're proud of it. The neocons are proud of it. Lindsey Graham boasted about it. Mitt Romney boasted about it. Hey, we're getting war on the cheap. Maybe they should fight. Maybe they should see how they do against Russian weapons. They seem to think they're so easily conquered. Turns out they've been wrong. This has been a awful, awful week for Ukraine. I mean, it gets worse and worse every single week. Now it's to the point of outright despair. You can see it in every headline. They're like, Ukraine is pretty much out of weapons. They're running out of men. They're out of ammo. They're broke. Everything is falling apart very, very quickly. And that's the way wars end. World War II, the Civil War, they end very suddenly when the other side just completely collapses. And we're getting there. And Mike Johnson thinks that giving another $60 billion of our money is going to change that. Where's this idea come from? By the way, I studied computer science in college, and there's a book they made us all read called The Mythical Man Month, which the point of the book is you can't just convert money into software. You can't just say, okay, I've got all this money, I'll hire a bunch more engineers and we'll get the product done this much quicker. It doesn't work that way because there's only a limit. You have diminishing returns. The more people you bring in, the more training, the more logistics, the more complexity, and eventually it stops working properly. And you can't just money goes in, weapons go out. There's training, there's logistics, there's maintenance, there's all of these things. And when all of the Western weapons from America and Britain and France and Germany and all these other places become this hodgepodge of stuff in Ukraine, and they're like, okay, we need spare parts from what? For what? For which thing? It becomes a higher order of magnitude more complicated. Oh, we're out of 155 millimeter shells. What do we do now? Well, I'll get 105 millimeter shells. Okay, well, we need different guns for those. None of these things are going to work. And some people have been saying this for months and months and months, and now it's all falling apart. And where's the $60 billion for Ukraine actually going? It's going to the military-industrial complex. It's going to replenish our stockpiles. You know how much of it's actually going to Ukraine for their government? Zelensky's cut $8 billion. All the rest of that's just paying back the arms manufacturers for the weapons we already spent. We already lost. Hey, what about that southern border? The Democrats just proved there will be no punishment for Democrats willfully keeping our southern border open. And Mike Johnson's answer to that is, oh, screw it. Let's just give all these foreign countries our money and let them keep crossing up all our border. Marjorie Taylor Greene proposed redirecting the proposed Ukraine cash to victims of last year's Maui wildfires, the East Palestine train disaster, and to deport undocumented migrants. Great ideas. These aren't jokes. These are great ideas. This isn't trolling. Her collective efforts prompted a clapback from Jared Moskowitz, who floated renaming Greene's house office the Neville Chamberlain Room. Oh, that's original. Calling someone opposed to stupid-ass wars Neville Chamberlain. Wow, that's so unique. Never been done. Oh, and he went on to call the President Amendment, Greene should be named Vladimir Putin's special envoy to the United States Congress. That's even more original. Great job, Jared Moskowitz. So there you go. At least someone in Congress is calling out this BS, because nobody from Michigan is. None of our Republican members are. But we talked about that last weekend. What else has been going on? All right. I saw this on I don't normally watch this show, but I happened to run into Charlie Kirk's podcast that he was talking about this. Same page as me. Good. I hope we're all on the same page about this, by the way, because we should be furious. We should be furious. If you got my email blast today about signing a petition to your members of Congress demanding they vacate the speaker, I hope you signed it. I hope you sent that message on along. Because, by the way, guys, when most petitions you sign to Congress, if they deliver them at all, they go into this specialized system in members' offices where all their other constituent mail goes, and it all gets pre-sorted and pre-organized, and they can just click a few buttons and send the form letters back. We bypass all that. We send it straight to their legislative staff. And if we find out that somehow their legislative directors who are being addressed these emails aren't getting them, we'll forward them onto the district directors too. We send them straight to their staff so they can see how many people are pissed off about this stuff. because that does matter. You know, members of Congress do talk to their staff, and they do want to know what are the people mad about, because they do care about their seats. If not that, they care about their majority. You know, and even if your politicians are a Democrat, mine is a Democrat, Debbie Dingle. You know what? Right now, Mike Johnson is going to the Democrats to bail him out. That's, by the way, what they were talking about in the news. I could probably find the Politico story. It was like on March 21st, or March 24th, I believe. It's not coming up off the top of my web browser. I'm not going to have dead air looking for it. But the story was Mike Johnson might have to bring up Ukraine aid, because that will be something the Democrats will therefore support him if there's a motion to vacate. Because remember what happened with McCarthy? It took only a few Republicans to support the motion to vacate. The Democrats all backed it. So the Democrats are now controlling Mike Johnson and saying, hey, support the Ukraine bill, and we'll stop them from removing you until we choose not to. Because that's the next thing, guys. What's Mike Johnson going to do once the Democrats come back and say, now you're going to do the next thing for us, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing? And if you don't do everything we say, we're going to go with the Republicans that want to vacate you and kick your ass out. So Mike Johnson's entire remainder of his term will be controlled by Democrats. Is that the House Speaker we wanted? A guy whose entire rest of his career will be controlled by Democrats? That's what Mike Johnson was saying in that clip, by the way. You know that clip we saw when the show started? He called himself a wartime president, a wartime speaker, because God forbid we have a continuity problem with all these crises going on. You saw him invoke the Newt Gingrich. Oh, and I spoke to Newt Gingrich, and Newt Gingrich said, never since the Civil War or even further back has there been so many challenges. God forbid. God forbid we take a few days to sort out the issues we have with a speaker who currently takes all of his orders from the Democrats. Amazing. Amazing. By the way, hi Paula. I did see your chat there. Oh yeah, so Charlie Kirk was talking about this, and he made a comment. He said that the administrative state wore Mike Johnson down. Well, I don't think they did. I think the administrative state ate Mike Johnson for breakfast. What's it been? 6 months? Give me a break. But whatever. At least, I mean, Charlie Kirk is still on our same page too, and good for him, and good for all of the Republicans. Apparently, Kevin McCarthy, by the way, is now airing attack ads against Matt Gaetz and against Bob Good and against a few other Republicans that voted to remove him. He's spending 7 figures in their districts. I think I saw is like $1 million has been spent so far. More is being spent. So which tells you everything you know about Kevin McCarthy, because he's spending his money, not keeping the majority. He doesn't give a shit about that anymore because he's gone. So now he's spending his donors' money. His donors' money. Where is his donors coming from? His donors attacking the conservatives. But don't worry, guys. It's my fault that the Republicans aren't unified. Not Kevin McCarthy's fault running attack ads against conservatives, the conservative Republicans. No. It's only bad. It's only bad to not be unified when we do it, when the conservatives do it, when the principled people who are mad at the politicians voting against the Constitution, then we're traitors to our cause. But when the establishment refuses to support Trump as the nominee for president, for example, right? Paul Ryan, then it's okay. Sure, I'd like to know who these people were that were funding those ads, but dark money. What else has been going on in clown world this week? Oh, of course, there's the trial of Donald Trump, which apparently they now have a jury for. I'm sure you guys have seen some of the headlines. 50 plus jurors had to be chewed through because they couldn't be unbiased. And of course, the ones who are all a bunch of dirty liars. There was a few that became jurors only to then come back and admit, actually, no, I can't be unbiased. Zip code justice. You live in a Democrat area, you're living in a lynch mob, and they'll come after you if they feel like it. If you have the wrong political beliefs and the public knows it, I mean, obviously with Donald Trump, it's writ a lot larger. But that's what that says. What does it say when you cannot get a fair trial in New York City if your name is Donald Trump? To me, it says this. Democrats are evil people. Right? I mean, look, I have some loved ones who are Democrats. I know they would vote to lynch Donald Trump if they could. And they would rationalize it, and they would excuse themselves for it, and they would say they're doing it for the greater good because they're evil people. And I'm sorry, that's what that means. If you would destroy somebody and steal an election, which is what this entire exercise is, you're an evil person. You are. Sorry, that is what that means. And that is what Democrats have proven themselves to be. Or maybe the better way to say this, because I was going to also talk about the Christina Karamo people, is they have been taken down this road. Because they weren't always like this. There was a lot of wonderful people, considerate people, caring people who are Democrats. And I'm sure on some issues they still are. But they would not hesitate to lynch Donald Trump if they could. They don't care that they would lose an election. They would do it for the sake of stopping them from losing the election. Eugene Dixon says Congressional Republican Mike Johnson throws border security in the trash instead favoring money for endless feudal war in Ukraine. Yeah, that's exactly what's happened. All that $60 billion is going to do is keep Ukraine in the fight for just a little bit longer, just a little bit more Ukrainians can die. That's all. That's all. And they're happy about that. They're happy to use the Ukrainian people as cannon fodder. That's how much they care about Ukraine, these hypocrites. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah. Democrats. I mean, that's where they've been taken by the media. That's where you get to the point where you cannot get a fair trial in New York. That the media has taken them to that point. Which, of course, was another story. You guys saw this, I'm sure, that there was I think it's some kind of senior editor at NPR who spoke the truth about how NPR has become a partisan hack operation, for which they suspended him, and then he quit, saying, I'm not going to be subjected to this inquisition. I can see I'm not wanted here anymore because everything I said was true, and thank you for proving it, which is what they did. Let's hope that leads to more defunding of NPR. And actually, the only other real story I had tonight was, well, there was the story about the Democrats taking back the state house. Let's do that on Sunday when we have Patty or someone else who was on the ground to talk about that in more detail. And I can also give you guys some updates on what's been going on in Lansing, legislation-wise. There's stories about national popular vote might be coming back on the agenda again. All kinds of things might be coming back on the agenda again. We'll keep you updated. And then the other thing was a follow-up to what we were talking about last Sunday. At that point, Iran had just struck back at Israel, and we weren't really sure. I mean, we're still not really sure what's going to come next. I think it's safe to say Israel will strike Iran back. And Iran has said, if you strike us back, we will strike you back. So, yeah, I guess we're going to war. And I made a comment on Sunday's stream. I'd said, you know, obviously, Israel bombed the Iranian embassy for the exact purpose of provoking this war. And Iran had to have known that. They took the bait, but they had to have known it was bait, right? I mean, the same way Russia took the Ukrainian bait. They knew what was going to happen when they had their special military operation going into Ukraine. They knew that the West was provoking them. So why'd they take the bait? Well, there's at least a couple of plausible theories to this. First theory is because otherwise they'll never stop. I mean, this wasn't exactly the first time Israel assassinated some Iranians at their embassy, these military generals. It's not like the first time Israel ever, attacked Iran before. So they're not going to stop. Same with what Ukraine was doing in ethnic Russians in Ukraine. What were they doing? They were shelling Donetsk day after day after day after day, to the point where even early in the war, you could see, I've seen videos of, shells arriving in the city of Donetsk, and you hear the explosions going off, and the women walking down the street don't even flinch because they've heard it for the last 10 years. At some point they're like, Okay, but what happened in Ukraine? We provoked Russia. We thought we were going to destroy them. We thought Russia's weak, Russia's irresolute, Russia will be crippled by the sanctions, our allies will support us, Russia's allies will abandon them, and the Russian people will rise up and remove Vladimir Putin, and we'll have our regime change. So we thought would happen. What happened instead? Hundreds of thousands of dead Ukrainians, Vladimir Putin more popular than ever in Russia, which is what matters. And Russia determined to see everything through. Russia having now completely removed itself of any lingering dependencies on the West. Now they have their friends in China, North Korea, and Iran, and Brazil. And, South Africa, that BRICS thing, which also includes Saudi Arabia and the UAE. They've got a lot of friends now. Friends who have about had it with us. So maybe Iran knew what they were doing when they responded to the provocation and said, all right, do it. I guess we'll see. We'll see where this all goes. If your war's not going well, start some more. See what happens. And it just boggles my mind, folks, that Joe Biden has fucked everything up in the world. When Trump left office, I mean, there was the COVID thing, but which maybe the deep state knew something about too, that they've been hiding from us. But other than that, where was our foreign relations when Trump left office? We didn't have a war in Ukraine. We didn't have a war in Israel or Iran. I mean, we had our share of spats with China, but nothing too serious. Because Trump was fundamentally a deal maker, which is what diplomacy is all about, doing things for mutual benefit. That was what Trump's approach always was. Joe Biden has destroyed everything in that, brought us to war because Biden's a neocon. All he wants is more war, more spending, more destruction. And the Republicans, led by Mike Johnson and Mitch McConnell, just want to double down on that even more. That's what they've been saying all week. Oh, Biden's problem was he's being way too placating towards Iran. Really? Because for all the whining he's done about Israel, he's basically given him a blank check throughout this entire thing. I mean, he's complained about it, complained at Netanyahu, and then every time, what are you going to do? Nothing. Okay. So Israel bombs an Iranian embassy. Was the U.S. do about that? Nothing. And the Republicans' attitude is, let's be even more militaristic than Joe Biden's regime will be. That'll be a good winning message for Election Day. And then there was that weird meeting with Trump and Mike Johnson on Friday, where Trump appeared to sign off on all this stuff. What's Trump thinking? Did Mike Johnson play Trump that day? So I saw this funny tweet. Let me pull this up here. This remarkable comment. J.D. Vance, freshman U.S. Senator from Ohio, really bright guy, would make a great vice presidential pick, by the way. J.D. Vance says, perhaps Mike Johnson should stop going on TV and telling the world that Donald Trump endorses every piece of his ridiculous betrayal. Meaning, of course, the foreign aid, the FISA stuff. Also, by the way, another thing that Johnson threw in there was the TikTok ban that's actually a complete free speech ban on the internet. We talked about this on the show before. The bill that allows the government to say, you're a foreign entity, we control you, right? Hey, Trump, you're a Russian asset. We control Truth Social now. We take that from you. That bill Mike Johnson threw out there. Also a bill Mike Johnson casually mentions, we're also going to seize Russian assets. That's another thing they've been talking about for months. Every lawyer who looks at that's like, you can't legally, that's stealing. Every economist looks at that's like, are you out of your mind? If you start stealing a foreign country's assets, guess what? Foreign countries are going to take their money out of our banks. You know what happens when a whole big group of people try to take a whole lot of money out of a bank that has a fractional reserve, which means they only have a fraction of the money in the bank? You have a run of the banks. which causes a Great Depression. Because when a foreign country says, hey, if the U.S. decides they don't like us anymore, they're going to just steal everything we have out of their banks, then you certainly don't want to be a depositor anymore, which is kind of a bad thing. There's actually even the New York Times is not bad about this. Every economist, every global finance person's like, this is an incredibly dangerous precedent. Don't do it. Don't do it. But they're neocons. They can't help themselves. They're doing it. So Mike Johnson casually throws in there, yeah, we're going to do $90 billion, $100 billion, $110 billion in foreign military spending. Also, we're going to throw in the control the internet thing. Oh, also, by the way, we're going to seize Russian assets. Don't worry. That's a side thing. That's actually probably more dangerous than everything else in the bills. There's 4 of them. That's his miscellaneous bill. Things that we should be debating intensely, like all that congressional procedure stuff that Mike Johnson's been ignoring, is there for a reason, because public debate matters. Like, that's remember the whole passage to find out what's in it kind of stuff that Nancy Pelosi was doing? The whole thing was, don't let the public see what we're doing, because they might get mad and they might stop something from happening. That's Mike Johnson's standard operating procedure now. This is so reckless. This is so dangerous. So yeah, folks, please do take a moment to contact your lawmakers and tell them get rid of Mike Johnson before he screws everything else up. Anyway, so JD Vance says perhaps Mike Johnson should stop going on TV and telling the world that Donald Trump endorses every piece of his ridiculous betrayal. Why hasn't Trump corrected him then, has he? What's Mike Johnson's other big thing? Oh, we're not going to call the money for Ukraine a gift anymore. We're going to call it a loan. Although we all know they're not going to ever pay it back. So it is a gift. But this, I guess, appeals to Donald Trump that, oh, it's not a gift, it's a loan. Only it's not a loan, it's a gift. It's a loan we'll never, ever see again. Just like the shells we borrowed from South Korea that they're never going to see again. Why isn't Trump saying anything about this? Well, he's in court, so there is that. Very sad situation, guys. I think I'm going to call it a stream on that note, unfortunately, because frankly, I feel like I'm just being an old codger screaming and yelling into an empty space here. I know you guys are watching, and I'm seeing a couple of people in the comments. Popcorn Dog Days on Rumble says Manhattan voted 86% for Brandon. Yep. Can't get a fair, but that should, see, in a sane world, that shouldn't matter, though, right? You should be able to vote for a party and not be compelled to lynch members of the opposing party, no matter what the law or the facts are. That's the problem. That's the state that the mass media has taken Democrats to. So that's how bad things are. So, all right, that's, I think, going to do it for us for tonight. Sunday, we will have some guests on, so we can have some friendly conversation and some banter. One more thing. Since the deadline's coming up, the Karamo cult is going to do everything they can to destroy the state party. And that means, number one, reinstalling Christina Karamo. Number two, destroying anybody who opposed her removal. And number three, rewriting the state party bylaws in all the insane, crazy ways they've been talking about doing for months. Things that are completely illegal, like canceling Republican primaries and having Republicans nominate by convention, all the way to we're going to evict anybody from any office. We're going, in some cases, they've talked about nullifying township elections, like just craziness. And there's two aspects of they have two aspects of how they want to do that. One is taking over the precinct delegate spots, which is why you need to file to become a precinct delegate. The deadline is Tuesday, May 7th. So there's less than 3 weeks left on that. Go to your county clerk's office and file. And secondly, the 23rd, this Tuesday, is a deadline to file for any other public office that's partisan. So state representative, county commissioner, county clerk, county treasurer, those positions have statutory memberships in their county Republican executive committees. And I guarantee you the Karamo people are cognizant of this, and they're recruiting people to file for those seats, to run for those seats, even if, and especially if, the seats are hopelessly Democratic districts. because then they'll have terms on their county executive committees. For the county commissioners, starting next term, it's 4 years. And I know in my county, they're filing in county commission seats where the Democrats have 70%, advantage, 70-30 advantage, hopeless seats. But they want to be in charge of the party so they can turn it into their crazy communist cult. So if you haven't already done so, go to your clerk's office, see who's running for these local offices, and you might just need to file for them just to at least keep there being a chance that these psychos don't take over your county party. So there you go. Tuesday is that deadline. More on that soon in the emails, and I'm sure we'll talk about that on Sunday's live stream as well. And with that, I guess we will call that a stream, folks. Thank you for joining me for this rather unfortunate update. I know I've been a Debbie Downer lately. We'll try to have some happier news on Sunday, so we'll see. But until then, as always, thanks for all you guys do for liberty. And until then, peace out.